Flo is here. Lots of focus on that diplomatic crisis flow in the Persian Gulf after Arab nations, including, of course, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt and Bahrain cutting their ties with Qatar.
It really is a major story around the world, of course, in the region. Let's start with L'Orient Le Jour, the Lebanese paper that sums it up by saying that Riyadh is not budging. Doha has to get in line. Now, papers in Qatar, as you can imagine, are quite defiant. I pulled out a cartoon from Al Arab. In this cartoon, what you can see is a raised fist there with the flag of Qatar defying that symbol there. That's the symbol of the Gulf Cooperation Council, which, of course, is in a serious crisis.
And papers, they're trying to understand what actually sparked this row, aren't they? CNN has exclusive information that suggests Russian hackers could actually be behind this crisis.
It's an incredible scoop. Let's take a look at this article in CNN. You can see the U.S. believes essentially, U.S. investigators believe that Russian hackers essentially breached Qatar's state news agency and planted a fake news report that actually contributed to this crisis. Now, this happened about 2 weeks ago, according to CNN's report here. Essentially, the Qatar news agency published a story attributing false remarks to Qatar's ruler that appeared friendly to Iran and Israel. And according to this article, that kind of sparked this domino effect that led to the crisis. What's interesting is the FBI actually sent a team of investigators to Doha to help the Qatari government try and investigate this alleged hack. In this article, CNN says that U.S. officials say the Russian goal appears to be to cause rifts amongst the U.S. and its allies.
Well, meanwhile, stateside, President Donald Trump has raised some eyebrows. This is with his response to the crisis. He's taken to Twitter, unsurprisingly perhaps, Trump seeming not only to support the Gulf states, but also to take credit for the diplomatic and economic boycott of Qatar.
Yeah, it's a weird, well, some people say a weird series of tweets from Donald Trump. You can see it's on the front page of the FT here. Trump backs the isolation of Qatar. Now, this was a series of tweets in which essentially Trump said his call for an end to financing radical groups prompted Gulf states to act against Qatar. Now, the fact that Trump has taken credit for this diplomatic blow-up is stunning to the Washington Post and their editorial. They point out, after all, that Qatar hosts the largest U.S. air base in the Middle East, and the Washington Post goes on to say that this diplomatic crisis really threatens vital U.S. interests in the region. This editorial says that in reality, neither side in this battle amongst dictatorships deserves full U.S. support, especially not Saudi Arabia, which, according to the Washington Post, is a country that's fostered the spread of Islamist extremism across the world and has supplied many of the foot soldiers for the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, not to mention most of the 9/11 hijackers.
Flo, I know you pulled a piece out from The Guardian. Now, this is talking about Saudi Arabia's alleged links to extremists.
It's a piece by Mani Mohsin, who's a Pakistani writer based in London. Now, she says that in the wake of the London Bridge attacks, the Prime Minister, Theresa May, has said enough is enough. There has to be a difficult conversation with Muslims, and Mani Mohsin agrees. Let's by all means have a difficult conversation with Muslims, but please, let's not confine ourselves to only the foot soldiers. You can see, let's start with our ties with the Saudis, and that goes for the UK and other Western leaders that have castigated Muslims for not doing more to rein in radicals, all the while essentially cozying up to the propagators of jihad, according to her.
Now, papers right around the world also continue to focus on the aftermath of this weekend's terrorist attack. Flo, the authorities also trying to fight the threat of terrorism, of course, in the UK.
That threat is depicted in this cartoon here in the New York Times by Shapat. You can see here the British flag, one of the squares there represented by that black jihadist flag. The flag is also in a cartoon that's featured in Courrier International. This is by the Dutch cartoonist Aaron van Dam, showing the British flag here at half-mast, being soiled by Donald Trump and his tweets. Of course, Donald Trump drew a lot of criticism for essentially criticizing London's mayor, Sadiq Khan, on Twitter in the immediate aftermath of those attacks.
Now, meanwhile, of course, the investigation into the terror attack continues. We've been hearing just in the last few moments, in fact, from France, saying they've confirmed that a second French person is among the 7 who died there. But also police identifying the third attacker, 22-year-old Italian citizen of Moroccan descent.
As you can imagine, there's a lot of news coming out of the Italian press. Here's an article in La Stampa coming back on the fact that this 22-year-old was actually arrested back in 2016 on his way to Syria, arrested in Bologna, I believe, where essentially he planned essentially to fight for ISIS. Authorities in Italy say they warned British intelligence authorities that he wanted to be a terrorist, but these warnings were ignored. Now, this comes as MI5 has drawn quite a lot of criticism because it appears that they were actually investigating another one of the attackers, but deemed that it was a low priority. Now, this has drawn criticism. Well, the British intelligence authorities have drawn criticism, but there's a very interesting article in the Wall Street Journal today that points out that there's clearly a problem with cooperation at a European level here. You can see they're talking about how the London attack spotlight difficulties in Europe's security cooperation. Now, this is a very touchy subject. Sharing intelligence amongst European nations is very touchy, but according to the Wall Street Journal, clearly more efforts need to be done.
Flo, thank you very much. Flo, looking at the newspapers, Charles here with business just a few seconds ago as well.